GNT show is intended for mature audiences. Parental discretion is advised. Live long and prosper.
Are friends with benefits?
Speaking of having a good time, Terry.
Mm-hmm.
Dayton broke the G&T show. This is now the David Mack
Appreciation Hour.
What is it about this guy that people love him so much?
With his purple velvet cape and his crown. I thought it was a little much when he had us carry him in the studio on a throne. I am awesome! Look what I have done! Look what I have brought upon the world!
There is an urge to go nya 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 nya.
I heard rumors that you might be working on something else, but we won't prod much. I was going to say it.
I'm going to pry a little.
Dare you? How dare you ask me to change it? Do you not understand the majesty of my genius? And the guy sitting next to me looked at me like he was, like I'd cramped in his hat.
Yeah, it's the professionalism that sells the show. That's right.
Welcome to the GNT Show Supplemental Log. This is Mike Ceridium, and today we're visiting Cryptic Studios, and we have the pleasure to sit down and speak with Stephen Ricossa, executive producer of Star Trek Online. How are you doing, Stephen?
Good. It's good to be on the show.
Excellent. So what, in case our listeners do not know, what does an executive producer do for a game such as Star Trek Online?
Sure. So you're in charge of the overall vision for the game. You're in charge of meeting financial goals, and you want to make sure that everyone on the team has project goals for different season and different updates that are coming out for the game.
Okay. So you kind of sort of set the direction and then make sure that everything gets accomplished to move the game forward.
Pretty much. So I would figure out, we usually do 6 to 12 month roadmaps and figure out when we want to have seasonal updates and weekend events, different sort of, appointments like the Mirror Universe, the Crystalline Entity events, and kind of set up a cadence for how those will work, make sure they fit within a rough schedule, and then work with the leads to make sure that the schedule works, that we can get everything done, make sure all the planning is there, and then making sure that, of course, part of that is hitting financial goals for each month on top of that. And then not just laying out the roadmap, like I was saying, but also holding a vision for the creative side of what we're doing now. Like Al, for example, is lead designer. He handles all of that, but and we work together a lot. But just making sure that I have a clear vision of what I want to do over a larger period of time, and then work with my leads to come up with the details.
Okay. So, for instance, with the Iconian War going on right now, you could have said a year ago, let's start showing what the Iconian War is all about. And then you'd go to your leads. They would give you some feedback, point you in the right direction, and then let them go.
Absolutely, we can go as far back as we want. We can go all the way back to season 8 when we first introduced the Dyson Sphere. We said, okay, what do we want to do for our next expansion? Because that was only a few months after Legacy of Romulus. We were like, well, we want to go to the Delta Quadrant. We want it to be about Voyager. Okay, well, how do we get 70,000 light years away? Well, maybe we can do this Dyson Spheres and some stuff. So we laid the groundwork for an expansion that didn't release for 14 months in season 8. And we just built toward that the whole time with all the Tuvok missions, and basically all of that was to basically, all right, now there's a gateway to get back and forth from the Delta Quadrant in a heartbeat, as opposed to all those years. And so the same thing was with the Iconian War. So all right, so we dealt with the Alachi, and then we had the Tal Shiar that were influenced by the Iconians. Okay, well, we're doing Delta Rising. Where do we want to be in a few years, in a year? Well, we want to wrap the Iconian War. It's been 5 years. Let's see if we can do it. So we have the Vaadwaur come in as a servitor race. We learn about the Bluegills. Spoilers for anyone that hasn't run through Delta Rising yet. And so we've been building towards that slightly before and during Delta Rising. And so that's what we're doing now. We've got episodes upon episodes of the war, and then we've got stuff planned post-war and well beyond post-war that we'll get to later. But I mean, not to, we haven't even done anything with the Iconians yet. But once they're done, that's 5.5 years that we've been doing that same story, and we definitely have a new one in mind that we'll be telling over an extended period of time as well.
Very interesting. So you're you're thinking not just a year ahead, you're thinking 2-3 years ahead sometimes.
Sometimes, yeah. I'm currently, and Maria will probably say the same thing for production. You do so much planning, it's hard to remember that it's June of 2015. You know, sometimes in my head I'm like, oh God, it's the middle of 2016, right? Because I'm doing all the scheduling so far out. It's just this, temporal makes your nose bleed sort of stuff when you think about it too much.
Yeah, time travel makes my head hurt.
Yeah, but it's great. Just being that far ahead, it really helps the team. They can plan, they can know what's coming, and by the time it actually comes time to work on it, it's old hat. Oh yeah, yes, that's the thing we're working on because we've been talking about it for a month.
Right on.
It's a great way to plan things.
And so you're also involved in the direction that the story goes. Mm-hmm. What is your involvement in terms of story? Are you in there, kind of plotting everything out, or is it more of a general overview? How deep do you get into story?
Me personally?
Yes.
So it's generally I'll sit down with Al and so Captain Gecko or Charles and Kestrel, Christine, mm-hmm. and we'll talk story. We'll say, all right, when we figure out we're going to take the game to the Iconian War, we'll figure out what can we do, how can we do it, and we'll sit down and we'll put a timeline up on the whiteboard. And you may have seen some tweets of us having these crazy Doc Brown style whiteboards. We're trying to figure mm-hmm. it out, and so we'll do that for a while. We'll probably spend the first 2 or 3 meetings where it feels like, man, we really didn't get much accomplished, but we're spending it eliminating things, right? Taking, that story's not very good, or maybe we found that story thread that we forgot about that we put in the launch of the game that we can kind of bring back up, or, these meetings will take place over a couple of weeks, and so people will go like, that reminds me of an episode. We'll go back and watch a TNG episode or a DS9 episode, and we'll see something that we can pull and take. And once we have the beats that we want to hit, we'll go through and order them up. Like, all right, how many episodes do we want to do? All right, what could happen here and here? And eventually, it's just once we kind of have the beats we want to hit, every meeting we're making more and more progress. And this could take a month, right? Of 2-3 meetings a week, just trying to hammer this out and come up with a cohesive story. And then once we've got it to a point where we're happy with every episode, all right, these are the X number of episodes we're going to do, and this is our 2 or 3 sentence blurb for each one. We hand it to Christine, and she'll go through and write a more detailed synopsis. And once we have that, then we can sit there and pick that apart, which is, she knows, that's part of the process, right? Like once you have something, it's easier to adjust it as opposed to come up with it whole cloth. We'll do a couple iterations of that, and then it's ready to hand off to our content designers, and they'll look at it and they'll put their own spin on it and put their own creativity in it and get into the moment-to-moment gameplay. Oh, maybe we want a puzzle here. Oh, maybe I want to take this thing off, but I still hit the main story points. That way it'll thread into the next episode.
Right.
I think that's something we did really well with Delta Rising. Every episode threaded pretty well into the next. It's something that we're pretty proud of.
Yeah, there was even at one point where I was almost certain that the events in one episode directly affected the outcome of another one. It was towards the end of the arc, and I was just totally impressed with the way that it was handled. And it's like, I wonder if I went back and played that and chose something differently.
It's funny, we have something that's going to go live in a couple of months that's going to have impact on something that goes live the middle of next year. Nobody will know it at the time, right? We'll know it. You guys won't know it, but you'll realize it. Then you're like, oh my goodness, they actually did plan it that far in advance.
Wow.
It's pretty funny. Sometimes we all look at the boards or Reddit or whatever, and we'll see people commenting like, when a new episode comes out, where's the story going? And we love seeing the theories, the fan theories. And sometimes we look at it and we're like, this guy guessed it. There's 50 replies and this one guy knows it. He figured it out exactly. Good thing nobody thinks
nobody's paying attention.
Nobody's paying attention. But typically on those big threads, someone got it right, and it's fun to see. Like, oh, and sometimes there was something recently where people were talking about it, and I won't mention it for spoiler's sake, but nobody got it. Nobody figured out what we were talking about. Like, oh, this is really good. It means that it'll be a big surprise when it finally happens.
Right on. So your involvement besides involvement in the story and whatnot. And you had mentioned the finance side. Mm-hmm. So you're also involved in like figuring out what ships are going to be released when.
Yep. So just like the story, where it's very collaborative, right? We say, okay, this is where we want to take it, and we'll sit down and hammer it out together. I'll figure out a cadence based on what we have to earn, and a cadence of ships and different sales and things like that. And then I'll sit down with Gorgonzola, Phil, or who makes the ships, and Al, who used to make the ships, is our lead designer. And we'll talk about what ships the game needs, what new options would be great for players, what we need to kind of get out there, what would be fun, what would be new. Like the pilot ships are fun and new. That would be something great. Just find a good spot for that.
I love those Raptors.
Oh yeah, those pilot ships are amazing. They're my favorite. I've been playing them exclusively since they came out. There's so much fun, all the flipping around and stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we'll sit down and just come up with a list. And sometimes we'll come up with 20 ships, and we'll do a smaller number of those. But now we've got a list for next time that we have to come up with ships. But again, it's very collaborative, right? We want, if everyone works together and everyone feels like they're an important part of the process, which they are, then everyone does their best. So it's something we try to foster here at the studio, not just with STO.
Right on.
Yeah.
So you're also involved in the planning of the lock boxes as well, then.
That's correct.
So you get to decide what ships go into it. What are you involved in like deciding what kit ability or not? Well, what are they?
Bridge officer training manual.
Yeah.
So we'll sit down and as a matter of fact, Jeremy Bordicus has made all of our lock boxes ever, going all the way back to the Cardassian box. He's made every single one. So he's been part of every iteration. And so typically what it comes down to from my side is coming up with a theme, right? So Al and I, and we'll kind of like, all right, what are some good themes, right? And so we're currently on the Zindi 2 box, right? And so we made the Zindi 1 box. We're like, all right, we want to plan for the future. We'll probably want to do the other 2 races. So we planned for that, and we just said, okay, this is a good time. We'll sit down in this very room. This is where we plan most of the games, in this room. And we'll bring Jeremy in, and we'll bring Phil in, and we'll say, all right, Zindi 2 is what we're leaning towards. Do you think that's solid? And typically they'll say yes, or they might have a suggestion for something else. And then we'll sit down and talk about it, right? We go, okay, these are the type of ships, these are the type of powers. And Jeremy will come up with, we have different menus of options we can use for different lock boxes. And, this one will have duty officer, this one won't, this one will have bridge officer powers, this one won't. And he'll pitch it to us. We're like, all right, well, he'll say, this is what I think we should do, and here's a couple of other options, and we'll go back and forth. It's about, maybe a meeting to 2 meetings to get that figured out. But once we come up with the plan, we're rolling. And sometimes we'll come up with something new, like bridge officer, right? Then we get the bridge officer, the new system for getting bridge officer powers in, and then we're like, okay, well, we go with bridge officer powers in the lockbox or other locations that we want to put them. There'll be debate back and forth about that, but
have you ever considered going back to some of the earlier lockboxes and bringing some of the newer technology, for instance, the bridge officer powers, going back and adding some of those in?
So we've done that once. Our early lockboxes,
I believe it was the Ferengi box. You guys had done something similar.
Yeah, so for the really early boxes, for the Cardassian and the Ferengi, and then I think it was the Tholian after that, those were very early in our kind of understanding of how lockboxes work and what the players found engaging. So we went back, and Jeremy found a variety of prizes that we've been doing that have been kind of standard but didn't exist in the first 5 or 6 boxes, and just kind of put them in there so that way those boxes were still valuable. But yeah, in general, we're not opposed to doing things like that if we see the need.
Okay, right on. Okay. Are you involved in like planning like the various sets that come out? Like we had recently the right now the Iconian set that we're building, the rep sets. Are you involved in the creation of that, or is that?
So when I was the lead producer and I was the systems producer at the same time, I was more involved. These days, I try to be at least surface level engaged with everything, and then I'll deep dive on a few things. Like I want to make sure the story's right, and I want to make sure major new systems are right. But I'll show up to those meetings, and because I've been on the team for so long and I've got a fair amount of experience, I'll give my feedback. But for the most part, our systems team is pretty seasoned.
Okay.
They're fairly solid. They've got a lot of great ideas, and Al's in there with them. So I'll pop into the meeting and I'll talk a little bit. But the systems team, those guys have it. They can handle it.
All right. Very good. Let's see. Bear with me. So I'm assuming you're a Star Trek fan since
Absolutely.
you're working on.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It was in my, when I took over, I had my blog post kind of explaining it. Yeah, I mean, ever since I was a kid, right? My dad was a big Trek fan, and so we always watched. And TNG started when I was 8 or 9, so that was a show that we always watched, and all the way through for DS9, Voyager.
What's your favorite series?
DS9.
DS9.
Yeah, hugely Space Nine.
Yeah, very good. One of the things that recently came up in one of the new featured episodes that sparked a bit of controversy was the introduction of a pair of LGBT characters.
Yep.
And because DS9, we had Nog, and everyone knows Nog lost his leg in during the Dominion War. As someone who is disabled, do you know or do you have any plans to do a character or involve a character that is differently abled?
We have no problem doing it. It's something that Star Trek is known for throughout the TV shows and the movies, right? A lot of firsts happen through the Star Trek TV show, and we are trying to get back to those roots, right? And that was part of the reason for that in the last episode,
which was fantastic.
Yep, and having someone that is differently abled in the game would be awesome, right? We don't want it to be like we felt that in the previous episode. It wasn't shoehorned in. It was just their side NPC characters, and that's just how they are.
Worked.
So if we could find a situation where it just works, great, right? Calling attention to it as a good or a bad, I feel like does it a disservice, right?
Yes.
It should just be conceived. That's just
it should be.
That's just how it is.
Yes, exactly. Very good. I love that answer. And so we know that you're a Star Trek fan. So what are some of your other favorite sci-fi?
I'm pretty omnivorous. Hopefully I don't get the boos and the hisses. I love Star Wars and Battlestar Galactica, and I enjoy it all. I am fairly omnivorous. I enjoy my space combat. Of course, it's always great. But yeah, I mean, those are the ones that come to my mind.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you read the Star Trek novels?
I do, actually. It's I've read quite a number of them. Some of my favorites was the DS9 relaunch. They did the entire, basically, it was season 8 of Deep Space Nine. I thought that was great. That was really cool. They introduced some fun new characters, and it felt like an extension of the show. It was just the way they wrote the characters and the stories they were telling just fit for how the Dominion War ended and Sisko disappearing and all of that. I thought that was really well done.
Who's your favorite author?
I don't think I could name one.
Okay. That's fair.
It was a while ago when I read those, but I'll still pick one up from time to time. I even read our pocketbooks one that came out before the game launched. Right?
Very good. Right on. Let's see. Normally we have some questions that we call the Lipton questions.
Okay.
Let me grab those real quick, and I'm trying to remember what they are, but here they are. If you could be any species in Trek other than human, which one would you choose to be?
Pretty good one. I like Romulans. Romulan would be pretty cool. I actually never thought about that before. I think Romulan would be pretty cool.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's see. The name of your starship, the USS
Inferno.
Inferno.
They make fun of me because every time I change ships, it's the USS Inferno. So I have to change the name of the other one and change it every time. But whatever ship I'm actively flying is the USS Inferno.
Oh, right on. Yeah. Okay. If you were given the green light to kill a major Star Trek canon character, which would you pick?
So we've talked about killing major characters in our game, right? At the end of the Undine threat and the war ends, we actually considered killing Quinn and Jempak together, just wiping them out and trying to figure out. But technologically, it would have been tough because the game starts in 2409 and the war ends in 2410, and so it'd be weird. We had to do all this weird stuff, so we decided against it. But the reason we went that way is because it'd be super impactful, totally memorable for doing it. Mm-hmm. So for me, it would have to be huge, right? So I'll say Picard. It's got to be a big deal.
And
it can't be a red shirt. It's got to be the opposite of a red shirt.
Yeah, then he most certainly would be.
I mean, one of the most stressful episodes, right? Best of both worlds, where you go into the break not knowing if he's going to sign his contract and come back. I mean, that would have. I mean, it's already an all-time series, right? Just in television history. But if they actually killed him off, like that would have been obscene. It would have been incredible.
Oh yeah, it would have changed everything for TNG.
Yeah.
At the same time, I think it would have. Let's see, it would have put Riker in the big chair.
Yeah.
And
it's like the worst of all worlds, right? Where the Borg had Locutus and they took over and he's all crazy with the beard.
Yeah, exactly. It would have set them on a path that could have ended up anywhere.
No, I mean, it's definitely a stronger show for it, but I think that's something like Game of Thrones, right? Where I've read all the books before and then watching the show. Killing those main characters, it means something, right? It's as opposed to Ensign Ricky getting killed again and everyone coming back. If you don't do it frivolously, it can really add weight to your show that no one's safe and it gets people more engaged in the story.
Yeah, right on. Have you ever, now this is not the question here is there a genre that you haven't written or published yet that you would love to try? Is there a Star Trek story that you would like to tell, to bring into Star Trek Online that you haven't done yet? Maybe like a mystery or some kind of, maybe a Western or something. Is there something?
There actually is, and it comes up a lot, and we're going back and forth on how and when we can do it. We want to do holodeck stories. We want to do Captain Proton, so black and white filter and the whole thing. something.
Oh, that would be awesome.
Yeah, so that's something we really want to do. And we even wrote a loose story, classic Trapped in the Holodeck, and you'd maybe start with Captain Proton and then go to an Old West. And I mean, this would be unbelievably expensive as far as creating all these new assets, because it's not like we have them. We'd have to build them all from scratch. But it's really appealing to us. We could think of probably a couple of seasons worth of content that would just be around photonic life forms and trapped in the holodeck scenarios. The one we came up with was super cool. But yeah, Captain Proton is like every once in a while. All right, we've got the next 12 months to plan. Now, someone always says, "Can we squeeze in a Captain Proton episode or something?"
Yeah, that would be so much fun.
Yeah, I think it would be great.
So, is there anything that you would like to tell our listeners before we end up in the interview? Anything? Any hints you'd like to drop about what's coming? Maybe.
So, well, I don't know if everyone's noticed, but the rate that these episodes are coming out, right? It's pretty. There hasn't been a month without a new episode since March, and so that trend is continuing for the foreseeable future as we close out the war and begin our new story arc. So
we have noticed, we have talked about it, and we do enjoy the fact that there's new content and then there's reason to play it again. And I've noticed in my own second time and third time playthroughs, I'm picking up little nuances, little things that I've missed the first time through. So these stories are in no way very simple. There's a lot of substance to them, and I appreciate that.
When will this air?
Let's see. I'll be getting back Sunday, and I'll start editing. I can have them out midweek.
So if this is coming out midweek, and they're going to hear this, there's going to be a brand new episode coming out tomorrow, right? Thursday.
Oh, excellent! Very cool.
So you get the spoiler. We'll have the blog out, I think, on Wednesday. Let everyone know there's a new one coming out.
Very good.
Yeah.
Now I'm excited all over again.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Ricossa. It's been a pleasure talking with you.
Great to meet you.
Nice meeting you. And once again, thank you. This has been the GNT Show Supplemental Log. This is Mike Ceridium saying kapla!
Music for the GNT Show is provided by Warp 11, Andrew Allen, Grethor, and 5 Year Mission. This has been a Busy Little Beaver production.